Welcome to the Be in Demand podcast, brought to you by How to Be a Great Podcast Guest. We designed this program to help people just like you add maximum value as a guest, get invited back, and be referred to other hosts. Visit beagreatguest.com to get started. And now, here's the show.
Hello, all my Be in Demand listeners. I am doing a little mini series on podcasting as a host and also as a guest. If you've been thinking about starting your own podcast, you're going to enjoy this series that I'm going to be running. 4 different episodes, plus a community call all about podcasting. Let's get on to the show. Are you a coach, consultant, or service provider who's frustrated with the growth of your business? You're in the right place. I'm your host, Laurie-Ann Murabito, and you're listening to Be in Demand, where I talk about how to leverage speaking opportunities to grow your business, get positioned as the expert, and monetize your expertise. Let's get on to the show. Today, we are going to be talking about how to increase your visibility and market your business by podcasting, whether you're going to do that as a guest or as a host, having your own podcast. So maybe you're watching this and you are realizing, hey, I've always wanted to have a podcast. But you see so many people podcasting and you look at how many episodes they have and you're like, shoulders down. Oh my gosh, that can't be me. I should have started so long ago. But guess what? The best time to start is right now. So here are some reasons why you might want to consider podcasting, whether it is as a guest or as a host. It's a stage that works for you 24/7. And around the globe, the podcasting platforms, they never go on vacation. They never take a holiday. Whatever holiday you're experiencing, somebody on the other side of the globe is not celebrating that holiday. So there's people who can be listening to you in their ears. Now think about what you do when you are listening to podcasts. For myself, I'm usually multitasking. I'm doing something else, whether that is driving, working out, doing laundry, dishes, housework, yard work. Like I'm usually doing something else. I will also, just as a side note, go on a podcasting binge when I need to do a big project like paint a room. I love to paint. It's just one of those things about me. To me, a bucket of paint is cheap entertainment. It's multitasking is what most people are doing. So I don't have to stop doing what I'm doing and go watch the webinar or the masterclass at a very specific time that you're running that masterclass or webinar. I don't have to stop what I'm doing and, okay, the challenge is going on now. I've got to go watch the videos and participate in order to get the result that the challenge promises. A very good friend of mine, Vicki Dixon, on her podcast, Unjaded, just a couple of months ago, she does what she calls a workshop week. So instead of doing a challenge that you have to show up for, it's on her podcast. So how brilliant, again, you get to listen wherever you are and whenever you are ready for that workshop week. Or whatever episode I happen to be teaching this particular week. You get to do whatever it is that you need to be doing. And again, 24/7. Who says you can't go back a year? Think about the podcast that you are listening to. Do you ever scroll back and whether the podcast host mentions another podcast and you go back and you download that one, you start listening to that one, or maybe you're the sort of person that you go to the very beginning episode and you start listening to all these different episodes. So you binge them. So look at your own behavior as a guide as to what other people might be doing as well. Because remember, the people that you're attracting are probably very, very similar to you. It's also very intimate. I mean, you're in their ears. They're listening to you, but you're in their ears talking to them. How wonderful. You know, you're talking to one person, but there's so many different people who are listening and they're all going to be resonating with you. This is how you can really get your message out there. Recently, I was looking for a photographer. I put a post on Facebook looking for a branding photographer, and a lot of people actually replied. And one woman who was tagged sent me a DM, a voice message. There is something about voice. You can sense somebody's energy. And her and I had this lovely conversation going back and forth, all by voice. And I shared with her, I said, just as market research for you, I just want you to know the reason why I'm picking you is because you left me this voice. I just resonated with her. I connected with her. So think of your podcast as the same thing, guesting or hosting, but you get to connect with your audience. They get to feel your energy, get a sense of who you are. Because quite honestly, if somebody is listening to my podcast and I don't resonate with them, they're not going to book a call. And if they do book a call, they're not really going to enjoy working with me. But it's the clients who do listen to my podcast and they binge a few episodes. These are the people who they book a call and then they end up hiring me because they've already made that decision before they even booked the call because there was some sort of connection there. So you get to speak to one person and really talk to that one person. I do remember the very first time that I started podcasting, recording episode 1 and 2. And it was so frustrating. It was so hard. And the reason why it was hard was I didn't have my podcast recording muscles strengthened. I didn't know how to do this. So that's why I'm sharing with you that when you are hosting your own podcast, speak to one person. Here's why you want to start your own podcast. Here's why you want to guest on other people's podcasts. If you are guesting, you are having this intimate conversation with the host, knowing that the audience that's around you is going to be listening. So it's almost like people are eavesdropping in on your conversation, but it's very intimate. And this is where you get to share your knowledge, share your expertise. I love having a podcast. And I actually tell a lot of my clients who have podcasts, here's how to use your podcast, not just to get your message out there, but also to get booked for more speaking events. And I give them some very specific type of episodes that they should be having on their podcast. But if you're guesting on somebody's show, you can be mentioning about your speaking. When I spoke at this particular conference, I shared with them, like all you do, like you're planting a seed. Now the audience that's listening, that's eavesdropping in on this conversation is like, oh, this person's a speaker. I'll have to go on over to her website or his website and check them out and see what they speak about, see what some of their topics are, because maybe that person who's listening is actually on a committee for a conference. If you don't have a podcast and this is something that you want to consider doing, I would say you've got to be a great guest. The best way to get on more podcasts is to be a great guest. Steve Gamlin and myself, we've taken all the guesswork out of being a great guest, and you can go to beagreatguest.com. It is a program that will take you through all the different phases. It's more than just pitching yourself and showing up. For that podcast interview, we show you how to be a great guest before, during, and after. I'd love to invite you to join our community call. Steve Gamlin is going to be joining me this month because we are talking all about podcasting. And you can sign up for that at speakandstandout.com/community. And that is coming up very soon. Join us for another community call. It's called a Speaker Circle community call. It is where I do a mini training, 10 to 15 minutes. You get to ask me questions, and then we do a little round table. Everybody gets to go around the room, introduce who they are and what topic they speak on. Speakers need to build relationships with other speakers. So that's why I'm doing this. And if you miss one, you can always listen to it when the episode goes live on my podcast. So what else can you expect this month on podcasting? Next week, we're going to be talking about how to start a podcast and use it as your visibility stage. Yes, I'm going to give you the cliff notes on how to get this started, because what I have learned in working with my clients and starting a podcast, and also my own experience of starting a podcast, it's not rocket science. It is not that hard to get started. There are just some basic things that I want to encourage you to do, and I'm going to help you learn from my mistakes, the things that I didn't do when I first started a podcast. And then we're also going to be jumping into how to make money podcasting as a coach and a consultant. And I won't tell you much about that because I want you to listen to that episode. And we're also going to talk about what episodes, using your podcast as a stage, what episodes are going to help you get more speaking gigs, get more bookings on your calendar. So that's what's coming up this month. Or if you are listening to this outside of the month of July, this is what you can expect in the future episodes.
Hey, you're still here. I bet you're the type of person who stays in the movie theater when the credits are rolling because you know there might be something cool that pops up. Well, here it is. How to be a great podcast guest. This is the program Laurie-Ann and I created, guiding you step by step through the process of becoming, you guessed it, a great podcast guest. Clever name, right? We have been featured guests on hundreds of shows around the world and have put together all the steps that we take to help you do the same. Visit beagreatguest.com to learn more. Now, aren't you glad you stayed?